everyone, I thought I would give you a little tutorial on how to throw my mushroom canisters. Now I actually only threw the first of these yesterday, so hopefully I can give a tutorial okay. But yes, so these ones are still drying. So they have a little collar in there and they go on like that. And it's a little mushroom canister. So yeah, by the time you see this, you will have seen the full finished piece, but I will do the demo of the throwing now. Okay, so we're going to start our mushroom jars with throwing the stem of the jar first. Now, you can use whatever size ball of clay you want for this, depending on what size you want in canister. The smaller ones I've done here have been 650 to 700 grams of clay in the stem, and another 550 in the mushroom top. This one I'm going a little bit bigger. This one I've got an 800 gram ball of clay for the stem, and I've got a 600 ball of clay for the mushroom top. So sort of, I guess you're working 200 difference between them. So if your stem's 650, if your stem's 850, your mushroom top would be 650. So this one's, what did I say? 800 and 600. Is that what I'm working with? Something like that. Anyway, you get the idea. Okay, so I'm not going to go through centering and all that. I don't have a direct throwing tutorial on my channel, but there's plenty of good ones out there, so you can go and find them. I'm assuming if you're going to attempt this project that you have thrown a little bit before. So basically I'm going to start by centering, which I will probably just fast forward through. Okay, so once you've got that centered, we want to open it up. So we're just going to throw a cylinder basically to start with. And I don't put a foot in this, so I'm going making the base fairly thin. Yeah, once we're happy with our hole in the center, we're going to open it out. Okay, so you can make your base as wide as you want, but just remember a mushroom looks best, I think, with these round top mushrooms, is if the mushroom cap is wider than the base of the mushroom. So just keep that in mind as you're going through. You might open up just a little bit more. Okay. I'll just compress that base. Okay, now we'll just pull up our walls as if we're throwing a cylinder. So again, I'll fast forward through this. Okay, so we have our cylinder. Just going to take some of the moisture out of that. So now we want to try and get that mushroom shape. Probably got more clay I could have pulled out of that, but anyway. So we want the wider down the bottom and narrower up the top. So we're going to start colouring in about 1/3 of the way up. And I'll just give a little more shape down the bottom here. I'm going to get my red rib out and do a bit more shaping down here before I get too narrow up here. Okay. Take our uneven rim out that you always get when you colour. And I'm not liking this transition here, it's a bit sharp, so I'm just going to try and graduate that a bit more. Oh, should have slipped. Alright. Yeah, so shape wise I think I'm pretty happy. I'm just going to take off some of this slip. Yep, okay. And I'm just going to get in with a narrow sponge and get that moisture out of the bottom. Okay, and let's trim out this skirt. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that as my stem for my mushroom. I could have went a bit longer here, I think, but maybe I'll just make the mushroom top a bit wider and not so deep for this one. Try to anyway. So before we take this off the wheel though, I'm just going to compress this rim again. And we want to measure this diameter in here. So we're going to get our calipers, we're going to use this end. And measure that. So then this end will be the outside diameter of our collar. Okay, so now we've made our stem, we're going to make our lid, so our mushroom top. So basically this is, we make it as a bowl and then we turn it upside down during trimming. So a lot of the shaping for this one is done during trimming, but this will just show you how to get that little collar to go inside, which we measured with our calipers so we can get it the right size. So again, just the usual coning up and down and centering. So I'll fast forward this again. Okay, so we've got it centered. We want to keep the base of this pretty narrow because we want to be able to trim right into that base when we turn it up the other way. So we want to keep pretty narrow with this base so we don't have to trim too much afterwards. Okay, so this is about where the tricky part is. So we have to get our collar. So we're basically making as if you were going to make a donut shape, but you're not going to join it together. So we're going to push down. Which I didn't do a very good job of. We want to keep some thickness down here in this one too because we're going to be trimming so much. So we need to keep a bit of thickness down here. So we don't want to go extremely thin on our base. Again, we're going to work on this center collar before we work on the outside. So center down into there. Again, this is where our calipers come in. So we used this end of them to measure the inside diameter of our stem, which means this side is going to be the outside diameter of this. So I've actually left a bit too much clay there, really. So we're going to be pulling up and cutting off quite a bit there. Because we're actually nearly at the diameter of our stem already, of our bottle opening. I guess it's the bottle, the bottom half. So let's just pull that a bit thinner. So a little bit more. We can always trim this a bit in when we go to trim, so go a little bit further. Trying to keep these walls fairly straight. And that's about it. I'm going to trim this right down. So I gave myself way too much clay there. Which I'm hoping I've left enough now to make the mushroom top. I think so though. Okay, I'll just double check that again. Yeah. Okay, so now we'll bring up the walls of our outside ball. And we are throwing this like a ball, so we're going outwards as we come up. Not too far, you can always bring it out further later. I'm going to trim that already because, oh no I'm not. Okay, now we'll trim it off. And now we'll bring it out a bit. So we want that to be wider than our base of our mushroom, our stem. Okay, I'm going to go with that and get some of this moisture out of here. And again, everything's been left pretty thick on the base there because we're going to trim a lot of that away to get our rounded top on our mushroom. I don't mind if it's a little uneven, it's a mushy, it can be a little bit uneven. Okay, so now I'm going to get in under here and trim away a fair bit of this underneath. Now, so just get rid of as much moisture as possible. Get in with our potter's knife underneath. You're not really going to be able to see this because I'm right underneath. Taking a lot of that clay away around the bottom. So I'm going right in underneath and sort of right in underneath like that. Because the less I have to trim later, the better. I'll show you when I lift it off the wheel how I've gone underneath there. Now I'm just going to give myself a little wiring off groove. Catch all those little daggy bits. Okay, and we're going to wire them off. Okay, so you can see I've gone right under there, and it's messy at the moment, but I'm going to trim all that, so that's fine. And it's quite heavy because there's quite a bit of clay down here, but I wanted that so I've got plenty to trim away to give my round top for my mushroom. So yeah, then you just need to let them sit up to dry, to leather hard, so that you can trim them. Okay, it's mushroom trimming time, so it's the next day. So I'm now going to trim these up and see if they fit together. So I'm going to start with the base. The stem of the first one. Did pretty well there, got that lined up pretty much straight away. Now around the bottom of these I'll actually make the clay lugs that I stick to the wheel because I don't have a Giffen grip. One day I might have one, but in the meantime I'm just using lugs of clay and putting them around the base of my pots to secure them to the wheel while I trim. Now the mushrooms can be a little bit trickier because you have got more width up here than you do down here, so it's basically like trimming a bottle. I mean, if you had a chuck of some sort, you could use that. I know Nat from Mud Magic uses terracotta pots quite a bit as a chuck, which is a great idea. But for me, this generally works. Touch wood, I haven't just jinxed myself. But yes, I've got very big lugs of clay. Usually it wouldn't be that big. But for a bottle shape where it goes so long first, I've done them a bit bigger. So the clay's probably a little bit on the wet side. I left it covered last night. I'm worried that it'll dry out. But we shall see. So these are sort of the tools that I'll be using, I think, today. I don't know. I pull these out and then end up pulling out different ones as well. But yeah. This one is Mud Tools All Tool, I think it's called. It's awesome. I need to get another one of them. I'll be using my little yellow rib and these ones with a circle one end. And I probably won't use this end much on this one because I usually use that when I'm trimming a foot. But I'll use the circle end and then I will probably use both ends of this one. They need cleaning, but anyway. Okay. So I'm going to start with my all trimming tool or something. And we're just going to take some out of this base. Oh no, it's pretty good actually, consistency wise for trimming. So I want to actually round this base a little bit like this. Okay, so I'm just giving it that rounded shape. Not taking too much out of the body. It's not too bad. And you'll see, because this is quite a gritty clay, groggy clay, that's what I was trying to get at. So that's where my yellow rib will come in. Okay, so I think that'll do for the sides. Now I'm just going to, I'm not going to do a foot, but I am just going to sort of try and concave this a little bit, which will probably be more pressure than actually taking much clay out because it's still so soft. We'll take a little bit out. So basically I just want to take some out of the middle so that when it fires, it's sort of got somewhere to go. So if you imagine it's up the other way on the kiln shelf. So if there's a slight concave in the base, it can sort of sit, it's got some room to sink down. Whereas if I leave it flat, it can sometimes bow out, and that's when you get a wobbly base. So I like to just concave it a bit. And this is what I've been doing with a lot of my mugs lately too, rather than a foot. Just that little concavey bit. And this clay is a little bit wet because it's still sticking to itself, but that's okay. So yeah, it's a little bit more pressure in the middle and ease it off on the outside. Just to give ourselves that little bit of a dip there. I'm also going to just take this corner off so we don't have a sharp corner there that's going to be prone to chipping. That's about all I'm going to take out because the base was pretty thin when I started. Okay, So now I've done that part, I'm going to get pretty much all I need to do trim wise. I'm just going to get my yellow rib out and sort of compress the clay, compress those grainy bits back into the clay. So it's not too much pressure on this. You can see it's smoothing out the clay again, so it's not so rough. Do that corner as well and bring it round. And I also want to do this on the base because that's a part that's going to be touching a table or whatever. We don't want it to be too rough. So not too much pressure on here, just enough to sort of get those grains of clay back into the body of the piece rather than roughen on the outside. You can always sand this as well once it's been fired, but I do like to do that now. Thing with groggy clay is you don't want to use too much water on it to smooth it. Water will just bring out all the grogginess again. So as little water as possible for when you're trying to smooth out the clay for these ones. Okay, so yep, I'm happy with that. And take it off. I'm just going to check the rim, but I don't think I'm going to be taking anything out of the rim of this one. Don't think so. I don't mind having a bit of, let's clean off some of this clay for you. Don't mind having a bit of a thicker rim in these because you will be putting that lid on and off. You don't want it too thin because it's going to be susceptible to chipping. I might just give it a smooth off though as well with a piece of plastic, which is one thing I didn't pull out. Okay, so I'm just going to center it. Yeah. And so what I do with this plastic is I just bring it over the rim and pull it down over the sides a bit, just to smooth that off a little bit. Just smoothing the inside with my finger. Still quite wet, this clay. Sort of trying to keep it wet during trimming though, because I think I want to decorate this one. Okay, yep, thickness all the way through feels pretty good. Okay, so that's the base done. Set that aside to set up a little bit more. And we'll grab the mushroom top. Okay, now the only problem with these clay being so wet, the right mushroom top there? No, I got the wrong one. I mixed them up last night apparently. Okay, so yeah, I'll just grab my stem down again because the only problem with them being so wet is it's a bit hard to test it to make sure it's fitting. But we'll do a little test very lightly and see how this is fitting. It's a bit tight. Ooh. Gosh, can we get it up again? A little bit tight, so we are going to take some off the outside of this, and I think it's more tight where it's got little bumps, so that's fine. So you can see where it sort of hit the sides of my canister. Yep, all the way around, so yes, it does need to come up a little bit more. Ideally you want your stem to be a little more set up before you try that. And that's the only problem. This could be a little drier too, which means it has already shrunk a little bit, so we do have to take a little more. Okay, so start with doing the inside first, because once you round this outside, it's going to be very hard to sit it on your wheel. So work on the inside first with this one. It's a bit back to front as to where you usually trim mugs and things. Now my mushroom top isn't perfectly round, but I'm not too worried about that. I mean, it's supposed to be a mushroom, they're not going to be perfectly round. Okay. I am going to put a couple of lugs of clay on the bottom of this just to be sure it's going to hold. I don't like it when my things go flying off the wheel. So we will put a couple of lugs of clay. It feels like it's pretty secure there, but we just want to make sure. Again, these are massive lugs of clay. I usually wouldn't go this big, but it's just, it's what I've got out, so let's just use it. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to trim a little bit off the outside of this rim here. We need to keep it pretty straight up and down, so that's when I'm going to go for one of these tools with a straighter edge on it. Should just clean it a little bit first, so we're not gouging our piece. Terrible at cleaning my tools properly after each use. You really should clean them after each use, and then they say you should put oil and stuff on them as well. Stop them from rusting. But I'm a bit slack with that. Okay, so let's get in here and take some off the edge of this. So we want to try and keep it up and down, straight up and down as much as possible, if not a little bit inwards, while avoiding the outside of our jar, our lid. And trying to get right down in that little edge. Actually, what I might do is grab another little tool. Is it handy here? Yep, just this little one, and I'm just going to try and get right down beside this. Ooh, just caught the edge with my fingernail. Actually, this tool is pretty good for getting right down in there. I need one with a... Actually, that one might work. Won't be too aggressive. Nope, that's good. Oh no! Chunked it. Which means it's a little bit soft. That's alright, we'll fix it. Could you guys see that coming? Probably could. It's alright. We all make mistakes. I'm probably going to add a little bit more clay back into that. It is very soft, so we should be fine. There. So let's do some repairs with our legs. Tanzia. Sorry, Tanzia's seen another dog out the window that she just has to bark at. Tanzia. Stop. There we go. All fixable. Like I said, this clay is a little soft. It's here. Just try and get a rib in there. Just trying to get rid of that little bump. There we go. Pretty sure we've got that sorted. Tanzia, stop! You're growling at the background. Being silly now. Okay. Okay, so I've got a bit of a lumpy bit there, but I'm going to leave that for now until it sets up a bit more. So the only problem is I now need to flip it to trim the other side. Let's see if we can just measure this. No, it's okay. So that fits perfectly now, so that's great. Well, perfectly, not quite perfectly. There's a little bit of give, which is what we want. Okay, just to account for some more shrinkage. Okay, while I've got it this way, I might just compress the rim of this mushy a bit. Give it a nice rounded soft edge. Okay. I'm going to flip him now and do the other side. This is where we get our mushy shape from. So in this, remember I left heaps of thickness down here. So I've got heaps of room to take a lot out because I want that rounded shape. Get some of this clay off my wheel. Okay. I banged this, covering it up last night. That's why it's all a bit of a mess on the bottom, but that's alright. I knew I was trimming it off, so. Perfect. Or perfect enough. I'm going to try and use smaller lugs of clay for this in case I want to get down a bit lower. Actually, I might put it back up the other way and do a bit of a trim on this part first. Now I've got all this stuck on. Sorry, going back and forth. As I said, this is only my second attempt at these really, so still working out little kinks as I go, or little improvements as I go for how to make them. Okay, let's put him back on this way. See if I can get him centered again. So I'm just going to trim this part now. I'm not going to take too much out because it's already quite thin there, but I just want to neaten it up a bit. Okay, so I'm going to go to my round one for this. I'm going to take these bits of clay that got stuck off as well. So I'm barely taking anything off. It's just really to neaten it a bit. Got some clay stuck there, that's right. I might get the rib out and give that a little bit of a compress. Let's smooth out. Now I probably still need to get back at this after I trim the other side, simply because the lugs of clay will probably leave some little marks. But hopefully not too much. Okay. Yeah, that's better. Okay, let's go back to where we were. See if I can fluke it and get it centered again, eh? Beautiful. Okay, because my lugs of clay are a little bit wet, they are going to leave marks on my rim there a little bit, but that's okay. We can clean that up. It's actually probably going to be easy to sand that after it's dried off a bit. I don't want to use water on it again, because if I use water to smooth out those little bits, it's going to bring out all the grogginess again. And I don't want too much of that grogginess coming through. Okay, I'm going to start with my round one. Actually, no, I'm going to start with my all tools, my mud tool. And as I said, I've got heaps here to work with, so I'm actually going in as far as I can, bringing it down every now and then. But basically, I'm trying to get this top as rounded as possible. It's still going to have a flat point there at some stage, but I'm hoping I've left enough clay, pretty sure I did, to get a really quite a bit of a dome to it. So you can see I'm just working my way in. And then back down. Basically, I just don't want any full-on right angles. You can see why I've left lots of clay in the base here, because I'm taking a lot out. getting nearly to the point where I'm going to have to stop and go with it. You can see we've got a dome, which is what I wanted. So I've still got a bit of clay here, so I can play with that a bit more. I don't know how to describe the sound I'm listening for, but you can hear it changes. You can hear that's a bit denser, whereas that's not, so you can hear that's got fairly thin. But there we've still got some density. My cat just had a skits attack. That's fun. Have you heard all that skitting around then? I think we're about there. Okay, so that's about as domed as we're getting for that one. But so you probably can see now, like the thinner you make, the narrower you make your base to start with, the less you're going to have to trim. Okay, we're just going to compress all those grains of clay back in now. Smoothing him all out. Smoothing him all out. Okay. It's about where I'll leave it. See if we can get most of this off without sticking to our rim. Yep, that one come off well. That one did too. This one I can see there's a little bit stuck because I think I moved a bit far down with my tool. That's alright, that's an easy fix. You can lightly do that without lugs of clay there. So. Okay, that is a mushroom top, which has now lost half of its weight. A few sticky bits there, that's alright, we'll sand them off. Okay, so that's the top of our mushroom. I'm not sure if I'm going to put these together yet. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to dry these separately. I would dry them together if they're a bit more to leather hard, but they're not, so I'm going to dry these separately. So first, I'll probably dry them upside down for a little while, and then I'll turn them up the other way. I don't cover them with plastic or anything from now on. So, yeah. So that's our mushroom canister. Okay, onto this little one. So I think I've picked my colours. I think I'm going to use stroke and coats. Hopefully they don't run. So I am just painting the little accessories. The stem is staying natural, which comes out a really nice toasty. And then I'll do the mushroom top too. I'm not going to do it with the glue because I don't trust it. So we will possibly use stroke and coat there, or not sure yet. But anyway, let's start with the bottom part. Okay, so I think I'm going to start with applying some manganese wash to all this, just to bring out all the details. Hopefully that goes okay with stroke and coat. And yeah, let's give it a go, hey? Okay, so my manganese wash is this one that I'm going to be using, Mako. I have diluted it with water quite a bit because I want it pretty, I don't want it too thick. Let's take our top off. Okay, brush. Okay, so I'm going to get in and just do a wash over all of this. So I'll probably fast forward a lot of this, but I'll do the wash and then wipe it back. So I'll do the wash part and then I'll come back to you. Okay, we shall see how that goes. I was trying to avoid getting it on the actual mushroom body, but I think wiping it off is going to be even more difficult to avoid that. So let's give the wiping off a go, hey? So, bucket, sponge. Okay, so I'm going to try and wipe it back without getting it all over the mushroom body. I have a feeling it's really going to sink into this clay because it's that groggy clay, so it's got lots of places for the wash to grip to. I wonder if it's going to be too dark for the stroke and coats to handle. We shall find out, I guess. So I'm just basically wiping back, rinsing my sponge. I just realised I didn't, now I've just stained it all over the body. Let's see if I can get that off. That was too much water in my sponge. It might be too bad. Okay, might have got it. Yeah, after I've done this, I better clear glaze or white glaze on the inside. I've forgotten that part, of course. So I'll just pour a white glaze on the inside. Wow, this isn't coming back much at all. I probably should have diluted it more, I think. Got a bloody hair stuck in there. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing this. So, as I said, I'm just rubbing it back, then rinsing my sponge. Okay, so I'm going to pause you while I finish that off. Okay, so I finished cleaning the back as much as I sort of wanted to or could, which wasn't sort of really sunk into this clay, but that's okay. I think it'll be fine. I actually think it'd be cute just left like this, but I am going to add some colour. Okay, and also while we were paused, I just did the white, poured some white on the inside, a white gloss. Okay, so glazes that I'm using, I am using some Trail Glaze by Chrysanthos. So I'm using the green just to do the stems on these flowers. Hoping it'll be alright and not too bright, but anyway. So I just canted that into a little needle nose bottle. And then I'm using Stroke and Coats. For the rest, I'm going to have to mix colours because everything I've got's a bit bright and I don't want it that bright. So I've got Camelback, which I'll be using on the shutters and the window frames and the door. But I'll be adding some white to that to try and dull it down a bit. I've got Pinky Swear, Pinkaboo and Grapple for the flowers, but again I'm going to tone them down with some white, well at least the Grapple anyway, or Grapple, whatever you want to call it. I've pulled out some silver lining for the stones, but I have got this Mako Fundamentals underglaze in cement, and I'm thinking that might be better, but then I'm trying to work out, do I want to put a clear glaze over it so it's still shiny, or so it's shiny like the rest, or do I want to leave it unglazed? I'm also sort of now in two minds about whether I want to use Stroke and Coat to have that glossy finish, especially on the doors and windows. Maybe on the flowers, but they want to look odd just having just the flowers in colour, in gloss. I don't know. Got these little hearts here I could do with a gloss, I guess, to bring the flowers back in. Have to pause you again and have a think. Okay, you know what? I've changed my mind. I am going to go all matte, because if I then pull it out of the kiln and decide I'd prefer it gloss, I can always add a clear and put it back through. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so we've swapped glazes. So we are now using Fundamentals underglazes. Okay, so I've got a few colours out here. I think this will be a lot nicer actually. So let's play with that. So I have cement, I have china white, chestnut brown, cinnamon, ivory, cocoa, pansy purple and blush. So I think all the browns are quite bright, so I'm going to be adding whites to them to tone them down a little bit. I think the pansy purple might be okay, and the blush together for the flowers. And then I think I'll bring the blush into these little hearts on the doors, on the shutters as well. So I think that is my plan. Okay, so I have my little mixing palette here in case I need to mix some colours. But I just looked up the cocoa and chestnut brown in the Mako Fundamentals. And the cocoa is very light, chestnut brown's pretty dark. But maybe a bit of a mix of these two might be alright for the wood parts. So yeah, I am just going to apply 2 to 3 coats of underglaze to everything, and then I will come back at the end and show you how she looks. Okay, so a few little things happened while I was underglazing. I decided to wipe back some of the brown underglaze to just give it a bit more of a rustic look. Still a little worried about the rocks. I think they're going to be too bold like that, but we shall see. But otherwise, and I didn't go into any pink, I just stuck with the pansy purple. Had to hand illustrate in my stems for my flowers. I did have a trail glaze, but it was a really bright green and it's also shiny, so I thought, well, that's not going to work. So yeah, I think I'm going with that as the stem for my mushroom. Now I just have to do the top. Okay, I added a little touch here. I did think the rocks looked too perfect, so I got my needle tool and added some cracks in the stones. So I think that looks heaps better now. Much happier with that look. Makes it look a bit more rustic. So yeah. Okay, now I'm going on to the mushroom top. Okay, on to my mushroom top. For this I am going to use the red velvet again, but I'm also going to leave the spots. I was going to do them white, but I think I'm going to leave them as the bare clay to bring it back in with the stem. So what I'm going to do first is mask out my dots. Well, first actually I'm going to draw out my dots just so I can work out where they're going to go. So I'm just going to draw that with a lead pencil, and that'll burn out in the kiln, no problem. And then I'm going to put latex on those dots. So yeah, I will probably fast forward through this, but I'm going to put some dots on this mushroom head. And actually, done it again. I'm going to do the inside of the mushroom head again first. Gosh, I'll work out what I'm doing soon. Okay, so we're going to do the macadamia on the inside again. So underneath we'll do the macadamia. So we don't need that yet. So yeah, do macadamia under here again. So let's do that first, eh? Okay, I'll flip it and just see if there's any edges I need to clean up. Nope, she's pretty good. So I'm not going to put on the thing yet because I want to do my circles. Okay. So yeah, I'm just going to draw in where I want my dots first. As I said, this will burn out, so we don't have to worry about it too much. Fairly random about where I'm putting these. Size is also quite random. I had thought I might get some dot stickers and use them as a resist, but I don't know, I think I sort of like the idea of having that dots a little bit different size. So after all, it is a rustic mushroom. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay, the latex I'm using is just from my local pottery supply store. So from the Potter's Market. Honestly, I haven't used latex before, so this should be interesting. I've just got an old brush to use, so I don't ruin any brushes. Any problem with an old brush? Is it so? Little bristles. Okay, I'll fast forward or I'll pause you and come back while I do all this. Okay, so my latex is all on. You can probably just see those shiny spots. Again, ignore the pencil, it's not going to be there in the end. Pencil marks. Okay, so now we should be able to just paint over it with the red velvet underglaze. So again, I've raised it up a little bit just to make it a little bit easier for myself. So this should be pretty straightforward, it's just painting it. What brush do I want? Okay, second layer. I'm going to do 3 coats on this as well. Third coat. Okay, that's our 3 coats of red velvet, Amico velvet underglaze. Okay, we'll let that dry and then we'll pull back the latex. I think you can actually let that burn off in the kiln, but I'd rather just take it off now. Okay, let's have a go at removing this latex. So I'm just using the end of this. Find an edge. Here we go. Be much more satisfying if I didn't have the pencil marks underneath. But yes, so far. Okay, I'm probably get another little razor in there and just, yep, fade out those lines a bit. Okay, I'm just going to go back in with a bit of the red velvet, got a couple little patchy bits. So I'll just use a fine brush to get in and fix them up. So it's a bit hard to see the effect at the moment because, yeah, that's still got to have all that pencil burn out. And you'll see that toasty effect once it's glazed. Now I'd love to put it together, but I can't because I have glaze on the inside of the stem already, so I can't really put them together. I can probably hold them next to each other. So you get the general gist of it. Sort of. Can I? Bugger, I'll just add extra glaze if I need to. I want to see it. Okay. There we are. Oh, he looks awfully cute at the moment. Let's see how he fires, eh? Oh, I hope he's still that cute. Oh dear. So yeah, next thing you'll be seeing is this little guy all probably finished. We'll see. We may need a clear glaze over the top of him, but we'll see how it goes after the next firing.